Hello, my name is Rebecca Hurtado Fairweather. I'm your news anchor, and you're watching UCSB TV. On this week's story, we're covering the dangers of fake abortion clinics that continue to pop up in the surrounding Santa Barbara area, and how UCSB students could fall victim to the disingenuous advertisements of Network Medical. CPCs are cleverly designed centers that are specifically made to talk women out of terminating their pregnancy. They are designed to deceive pregnant women through false advertising of their services, and when in clinic, talk women out of getting an abortion using fear tactics and guilt. They have purposefully misled women about how pregnant they are or delayed them past the window of opportunity for an abortion. While these centers claim to be helping women get access to reproductive health care, they do little to provide active information or materials to prevent unplanned pregnancy, such as condoms or birth control. I sat down with Julia Taymori, director of UCSB Students for Reproductive Justice, who is currently working on taking one of Network Medical's advertisements down from the Daily Nexus kiosk on the UCSB campus. Hello, my name is Rebecca Hurtado Fairweather, and I'm your news anchor, and you're watching UCSB TV. The suspicious death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini sparked protests and outrage across the globe. On this week's story, UCSB TV covered the protest in solidarity with Iranian women that took place last October 22nd in downtown Santa Barbara, hosted by UCSB's Iranian academic community. Protesters from all over Santa Barbara County made their way to State Street on October 22nd to march in solidarity with the women affected by the political turmoil in Iran. The protest was led by UCSB's Iranian academic community and attracted hundreds of people. In 1981, Iran made it a mandatory law that all women are required to wear a scarf and robe in public. To enforce the law, morality police were set in place around the country. The hijab law and the tactics of the morality police have long been challenged by women all over the world, but the pushback has recently become a force difficult to control for the Iranian regime. Mahsa Amini was detained by police earlier in September for failing to abide by the hijab law, but her mother states that she was in fact observing the rules. Iran security forces claim she collapsed from a heart attack at the detention center and died, yet witnesses claim security forces had beaten Amini to death. Amini's death has sparked numerous protests and uprising within Iran and a ripple effect for the rest of the world to follow. Already frustrated with Iran's current economic despair, these protests have since been fueled after Iranian security services cracked down on protesters, killing two 16-year-old girls, and after the massacre now known as Bloody Friday, where the Iranian government killed 66 to 96 people, according to Amnesty International. The country is now in a state of blackout where details of protests and Iranian retaliation are no longer accessible, leading many to fear for the lives and safety of the Iranian people. To gain more traction on these human rights violations, protests have begun to pop up all over the world, most notably Berlin, Washington, D.C., LA, and right here in Santa Barbara. Hello, my name is Rebecca Hurtado Fairweather, your news anchor, and you're watching UCSB TV. On Monday, January 16th, the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Committee of Santa Barbara came together to celebrate the 16th annual MLK holiday commemoration celebrating his life and legacy. Keynote speakers such as Salud Carbajal, Greg Hart, and Dr. Diana Berry came together to speak about Dr. King's message and his life and legacy. Every third Monday of January commemorates the life, work, and legacy of civil rights leader and Baptist minister Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King was instrumental in the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 through his nonviolent means of ending racial segregation. Some notable demonstrations include the Montgomery, Alabama bus boycotts and the March on Washington. Within 4 days of Dr. King's assassination in 1968, legislation for the national holiday was introduced, which would not be passed until 15 years later. Dr. King's legacy spans far and wide throughout the world, but his activism was largely influential in the development of the Black Studies Department here at UCSB. In 1968, the Afro-American Student Union asked the University of California to recognize Black Studies as an educational focus. The union also asked for acknowledgement and equitable opportunities for Black students. Their proposals went ignored by officials, which led to the October 14th demonstration outside of North Hall, calling for their demands to be met and for the appointment of a Black woman within the Educational Opportunity Program. This demonstration then led to the proposition of a Black Studies program at UCSB, which currently ranks 9th in the country. Callahan Morgan is a 21-year-old photographer dedicated to documenting and sharing the human experience and the unique qualities of UCSB. Callahan was born and raised in Santa Barbara, California, driven to pursue photography in his hometown. While you may not know Callahan Morgan, you may have heard of his Instagram account. Going by the handle Ivy Streets, Callahan has a rapidly growing audience, amassing over 5,000 followers since his presence began in winter quarter of this year. I recently followed the Instagram personality around for an exclusive look into his life, documenting his day-to-day experience. I also sat down with him for an interview to discuss why he's decided to choose UCSB and Isla Vista to capture.
Yeah, my name is Callahan Morgan, also known as Ivy Streets on Instagram. Studied several different things before getting to photography, but now basically my entire life revolves around my camera. I'm really passionate about learning more about the shared human experience, what connects people, what drives people to change, what drives people to passion, and photography for me is a way of discovering that and interacting with people. My journey with photography is actually fairly new. I started roughly 2 years ago. I think at first what drew me to photography was the ability to compose a frame and the ability to tell a story in a moment. What really solidified it was that human element, because in my photography I think the one thing that's consistent throughout everything that I like to do is the human subject. Photography for me is capturing a moment, but also capturing an emotion. I'd say Isla Vista is incredibly diverse, well, and UCSB, right? Because they're both kind of one and the same in terms of community and stuff that goes on in and around. UCSB, I mean, if we just talk about the campus, right? It's really good for photography because you have a lot of really light floors. So it reflects light up into people's faces, you get really nice shots. I mean, the campus itself is beautiful, right? Looking beneath just the surface level appearance, there's so much stuff going on all the time. Like, there's dance competitions, there's clubs, there's people just walking around with cool outfits. There's like so much cool stuff happening all the time. I think I came into it realizing that I wanted to show that so that everyone in these different communities can feel seen and heard in an artful way. I'd say most people are very appreciative, especially because a lot of the work that I've been doing up to this point has been completely unpaid. For me, I do it out of the passion for photography and sharing it with people. I really like sharing photos. Generally, the most I get of a negative response would be people just seeing their photos on like a daily fit post and just wanting to have them removed, which I do so immediately because my intention with the account is never to make people uncomfortable or to make people feel like they're being exposed in any way. It's crazy because I'm at a point in my life right now where there's so many different directions that I could go. There's a lot of different opportunities that photography has offered me. Photojournalism, which is a very strong calling for me. Photojournalism is telling stories that need to be seen, and there is a very strong social justice aspect to that really appeals to me. I see myself probably more even deeply steeped in photography, but probably more specialized in one way or another, because right now I'm just in my explore everything phase. If anyone wants photos of like a club or an event or anything, or more recently I'm starting to offer grad photos as well. I have a new website, it's called ivystreets.com, so you can check that out. If you're also interested in light painting photography, which some people might be, I have another Instagram called Calligraph. And I do light painting, like long exposure photography.
Wooden signs scattered across grass lawns. Shouts of vote rang through the arbor, and campaigns flooded social media feeds. These are some of the sights and sounds UCSB students have experienced for the past 2 weeks as Associated Students held its 2023 election.
This year's Associated Students election comes after a lot of controversy for the past year regarding issues of voter turnout, inclusivity, and transparency within the organization.
By election board and legal code mandate, a 20% threshold must have been reached for voting to conclude. This election has a 13% higher mark than previous special election for the internal vice president, which had a voter threshold of 7%. 4,473 undergraduate students showed up at the polls. meeting the required votes minimum by 5 p.m. on the 27th of April.
The student body voted to reaffirm all on-ballot services and organizations, keeping them going for the next school year.
Some of these groups and spaces include Campus Learning Assistance Services, or CAPS, Ivy Tenants Union, the USEN, Arts and Lectures, and other news outlets, such as The Bottom Line and the Daily Nexus.
The student body also voted on whether or not they'd like to increase fees on certain organizations.
Undergraduates approved the fee increase of Coastal Fund, the Education Opportunity Program, and the Food Bank, but failed to approve the increase of KCSB's fees.
Students running for office looking to make a change in the Santa Barbara community also got their results as well.
Undergraduates running for leadership got their election results at the Hub on Thursday evening, lighting the fire of elected officials to focus on their goals for the 2023 to 2024 school year. I spoke with two newly elected AS leaders to discuss their vision during their term and how they celebrated their win.
Hello, my name is Rebecca Hurtado Fairweather. I'm your news reporter, and you're watching UCSB TV. Students walking past the library may have noticed a new building added to UCSB's skyline. The new Interactive Learning Pavilion has recently opened its doors on UCSB's campus, accommodating up to 2,000 students. The new building features outdoor seating, study areas, classroom space, and lecture halls that seek to make learning at UCSB a bit easier. The building has been divided into 3 parts with an open-air layout, allowing students to have more space to travel to and from classes without disrupting others. The first floor is dedicated to outdoor seating and study areas, giving students the opportunity to bask in sunlight while completing their studies. Lecture halls are also a feature of the first 2 floors, aiming to hold 175 to 350 students. These halls were designed in a tiered horseshoe to make small group work easier and ensure maximum visibility. There are 20 classrooms that can hold up to 30 students that are equipped with glass whiteboards, movable chairs and tables, and new high-tech projectors aimed at making smaller sections easier for students and teachers. More indoor study rooms have also been added to the building, providing more access to quiet spaces across campus. These study rooms, unlike the library, do not have to be reserved prior. 3 project-based learning rooms are purposefully designed to encourage and facilitate small group learning. These rooms allow students to have access to a computer monitor, a glass whiteboard, movable microphones, and multiple perspective projections.
So you obviously have a really long resume of acting roles ranging from Marvel to serious roles to small indie films, as well as being a producer and speaking out for Indigenous rights. So I was just wondering, you were hesitant to take this role. Can I ask you, what made you say yes, and what advice would you give to any young actors out there who are also hesitant to take roles?
Everyone that I know and love said to me, you have to take this role. So having people behind you that, care about you and push you is really good. And being brave, ultimately, is courage conquers all. That's really been an important sort of mantra in my life, in everything, whether it's activism or it's acting. So, I'd say courage conquers all.
Thank you so much.